What are some interesting things about EU5 that I wish I knew before I started playing the game? That's what this video is going to be about. This is a video that I'm doing sponsored by Paradox Interactive. I am receiving financial compensation for this video. I just need to say that and make that very clear at the start. Now, I have put many hundreds of hours into EU5 now, and through putting that time into the game, there are just some things that I wish I knew before I started playing the game, things that are either very interesting or things that once you learn them seem really obvious, but as you're starting to play the game don't really seem that obvious. So we're going to be going over 5 or however many different things I want to fit into this video. I don't want it to be too long, but I do want this to be really beneficial to you guys, so I'll make it as long as I feel is appropriate. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below on anything you think, and try to enjoy the video. There is a lot of content for countries in EU5. Now, when I started playing the game, I painfully looked over every country, and what now seems really obvious, but somehow I overlooked, is that when you click on a country in the new game tab, you can actually see how much content it has. It's not an exhaustive list, and I'll go over that in a second, but what we can see by clicking on France is that France has 205 dynamic historical events, as well as 31 different bonuses. And by clicking at the content tab, we can actually bring up a list of every single bonus here and highlight them to actually see what each and every single one of them does. In addition to that, if we highlight any of the other things, we can see the bonuses of Catholicism, the bonuses of Christianity, the bonuses of monarchy, etc, etc, etc. It's really good for being able, when you're new to the game, to click around and just see which are the countries that are going to have the most content for them, which of these countries might have bonuses that most align with you. If you want to have an economical country or something like that, you can click around and you can click maybe on Florence and see, okay, Florence only has 13 advancements, but you can see we have this Florence Guild right here that might be something that you're looking for. This list is not totally exhaustive, and it does leave out a lot of bonuses that you might not notice. For example, Muscovite is in the East Slavic group, and East Slavic, all their advancements are not actually listed here. In addition to that, formables don't actually get listed here. Formables have events, they have their own advancements, they have a lot of things attached to them that aren't being listed there. For example, if I look at the Indruids, we can see that forming Persia gives us a lot of advancements that otherwise I wouldn't know about. We can also see the form Ilkhanate, which might not have as many advancements as the other ones, but does mean that the successor states of the Ilkhanate, the Jaliyurids, the Huliguids, and the Gurgans, could actually get unique advancements here and benefit from that. And so when you know this, it's pretty easy to decide, you know, who are the major factions, who are the major people that are going to have the most content. And if I just want to play a cavalry nation, that I might be able to just see right here, oh, look at that. Yeah, okay, Hungary has cavalry. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. I just wanted to do that. And that's just useful to start the game with. It's a very good UI. I think that's really cool and well designed. Once you select a nation, most nations are going to have a surplus of gold, and because of that, you're going to want to start building right away. But something that is very important to know and will help you a lot is to know that any building that is produced with goods will have the price of the building reduced by up to 33% by having a surplus of that good. Now that number was negative 50%, then it was negative 25%, now it's negative 33%, so that number might change, but the idea is the same. If we have a surplus of masonry, and therefore the cost of masonry is reduced, any building that uses masonry will also be reduced. Likewise, over here for lumber, if we highlight the price of increasing an RGO, we can see we have reduced the price of lumber within our market, and therefore this building will have a 33% reduction. And of course, if we do not have a surplus of that good, the cost of the building might actually be increased. As we can see, by expanding a lumber RGO, which needs tools, we have a price increase on tools. It's more expensive in our market, which impacts the lumber RGOs being increased. So something to just keep track of, especially as you start the game and you start looking around at your market, is to notice which goods do you have a surplus of, which do you not have a surplus of, which prices have been reduced, and what you can do to get all those prices down and try to keep them all down. In addition to that, there's another good, which is far more important than you might realize, and that's books made from the scriptorium. The scriptorium is over here within the clerics, and the reason the scriptorium is so important is he makes books. Books are then used to make the library. At game start, most markets will not have enough books to create libraries. As you can see through the bonuses of libraries, these are a very important building to have in every single town and every single city, giving you local cultural influence, population promotion speed flat, monthly literacy increase, max literacy, institution growth. You want this building everywhere. And so at game start, it is very important to get your scriptoriums going so that you can then get your libraries going. If you look here at population promotion speed, the flat amount is 10. So having a library will literally double the base promotion that you're getting in the game. Something worth really looking at every time you start playing a nation is to open up the government tab, go over to laws, and just look at what laws you have. There are some laws that are just blatantly better than other laws, and you'll generally want to get over to them. For example, in the administrative system, a lot of countries start feudal administrative. Some of them start with the central council, but those are a bit more rare. You can't change, well, I mean, in a literal sense, you can change your laws at game start, but I wouldn't recommend it. During your first couple of parliaments, though, you can use that parliament in order to change your laws. And it's just good to keep track of which laws you should really get changing. Changing feudal administration to central council right at game start, instead of decentralizing you, starts centralizing you, which makes it pretty strong. In addition to that, there is the levy law for monarchies. For some reason, republics don't get it. A lot of the Western European nations start on peasant levies. Peasant levies gives you a combat efficiency reduction, whereas noble levies give you a combat efficiency increase. Moving from peasant levies to noble levies will dramatically increase the combat prowess of your levies, saving you a lot of casualties in the long run. And it's a good idea then to just look through your starting laws and see if there's any duds there. Likewise, it's a pretty good idea to look through your estate privileges and see if there's any duds there as well. Although again, you might not be able to change them right at game start, it's a good idea to keep in mind what you can and can't do. For example, a lot of nations start with this communal lands. While this doesn't seem that bad on paper, the monthly progress towards decentralization is very devastating. Either removing this early or removing it maybe a bit later on after you get some power into your burghers is generally going to be a good idea. At a glance, you will generally understand which privileges are good and which privileges are bad, which of course does mean that there are some estate privileges that are quite good. Right when you start a nation, it's generally a good idea to take, for example, the building rights estate privilege from your burghers, because that will reduce the price of all your buildings, which, as you might imagine, is quite powerful. Each time you do enable a privilege, that will hit your legitimacy by 5 and make all the other estates unhappy. I have the pop-up for that turned off because I do this a lot. Generally speaking, the best way to do your estates is to take the good ones to try to get your estates as happy as possible. The burghers I generally give everything because they're perfect. They give you innovative push here, they give me capital economy and production efficiency push here, innovative and capital economy push here. Don't really like that one, but I like this one, trade capacity and capital economy push here, market attraction here. The burghers I like, and I like giving the burghers everything I want. The nobility, on the other hand, will generally have a lot of duds, a lot of them that aren't particularly good, but one to very much keep in mind is primacy of nobility. Primacy of the nobility, although it does give them 100% power, do remember that that is additive with other power increases, so they might already be at 400% power, so going from 400 to 500%, which is obviously not good, but not as bad as you imagine, and by getting that discipline, that's quite impactful. If you are a monarchy, you can get this estate privilege over here, auxilium et concilium, and this one gives you levy combat efficiency. Do note that levy combat efficiency is just levy damage, so you get 25% more damage. With that in mind, another very important one to take is common militias. Levy combat efficiency. With auxilium et concilium, common militias, and noble levies, your levies will deal 75% more damage, which is a lot of damage. At game start, some nations are just on peasant levies, only one of these or maybe 0 of these. The difference between doing negative 10% damage, 15% damage, and 75% damage is quite large, so let's just keep that in mind. Food is confusing and yet extraordinarily important, and so figuring out food is going to be very, very important to you before you even go anywhere. Food is something that you need to buy. You can also sell it. When you do buy food to feed your population, you don't have a choice. If you do not build any food, you will continuously buy more and more and more food until you can actually enter a death spiral where your run effectively gets overed because you just chain bankrupt trying to buy food to feed your populace. This is a problem that I've actually seen a lot of people run into. It is very important that you maintain your food. I've said that in a lot of my different videos because I've seen so many different people actually death spiral on food. How you actually get and maintain food is a bit more complicated than you think. So we can see right here that this builds livestock. The RGO of Freenwald is livestock. If we highlight livestock, we can see that livestock produces 8 food. Now, does that mean it produces food or it produces livestock? It produces both, actually. The way the game functions is that when you produce livestock, it produces 1 livestock and 8 food. The livestock becomes a commodity. It's effectively a car. Having livestock doesn't actually create food because you already created food when you got the livestock. It's a bit confusing, but it's just something to keep in mind. When you do then create livestock, we can see right here, 11,000 laborers or slaves working with livestock produces 88 food. Then we sell the livestock back to our populace as if they're buying a car or something like that. And then we get massive percent modifiers to all the different food that we're generating. The most important thing to remember here is fresh water. If a territory has access to a fresh water, either through a river or a lake, in this situation, Limfjorden actually counts as a freshwater lake, then it can build irrigation. So Freenwald here has 24,000 pops working in food. Over here, you can see Potsdam has 32,000 pops working in food. That's a lot more, nearly 50% more pops. Despite that, you can see that Potsdam is only producing 297 food to Freenwald's 250 food. Freenwald almost is producing as much food. How is that? Irrigation. Any single territory that is on fresh water, so you can see Freenwald has this river here, can build irrigation. Irrigation is a special building that gives you 5% food output per irrigation. We can see we have 9 irrigation here, giving us a 45% food multiplier. Farming villages give you even more food multipliers. So we can see fully manned 9 farming villages here gives us 36% food production. In addition, the farming villages actually produce livestock as well, which then, as you can see right here, gives us more food output. Then this province here, I should say this territory here, also then has sheep farms. Sheep produce wool, and wool produces 5 food. So by having the sheep farm here on the farming village, we have produced a province, so a territory, I'm trying to get my terms right here. We have produced a territory here that has 103% additional food output with 3 different sources of food, the livestock RGO, the farming village, and the sheep farm producing a lot of food. Over here on Freenwald, although we haven't exactly gotten as much, we can see we have irrigation, we have farming villages, and we have the livestock producing a lot of food. This is just something you're going to have to get used to, and this is something that's going to be very important to you. Some locations in the world, like Denmark with Zealand and just the Danish wheat, because we got wheat, fish, legumes, wheat. If you're playing Denmark, you don't really care that much about food. Also, Bohemia, why did you have to do that? If you are playing in central Italy, you're going to have to worry a bit more about food. And you're going to have to make these food provinces really count. And you're going to have to make them really matter because you might only have 2 or 3 good territories for producing food. Provinces that do not have wheat and livestock both produce 8 food per trade good. If I look over here at legumes are only going to produce 4. It's not great looking at the other ones as well. Sturdy grains only produces 5. Wheat and livestock are your big ones. And getting wheat and livestock around an area with irrigation, as you can see me setting this one up here, are going to be enormously important as the game progresses. I cannot emphasize this enough. Setting up provinces with livestock, farming villages, and irrigation is very, very, very important. Now, one little detail that can be annoying is farming villages don't create the most profit because the game doesn't really seem to always understand that food is actually quite profitable. To try to explain to you guys just how important removing the cost of buying food is, I've made this very handy dandy advanced graph in Paint, which I'm hoping isn't going to flashbang you guys because I changed the background. So all of this represents your total gross income. That's all income minus expenses. Then these things over here are the expenses. The court costs you can't remove. There's always going to be court costs. The army cost you also can't remove because you're generally going to want to pay for your army. The miscellaneous costs are going to be things like fort upkeep, building upkeep, anything like that. The net income is how much you're actually making per month. Food is eating into that net income. As I mentioned, food is not terribly profitable, so your total tax base won't go up by much by you making more food. So by just making more food, you can entirely remove the food income tax that you're paying right now, and you won't increase your court costs, army costs, or miscellaneous costs. Instead, all you will do is free up your net income to be significantly bigger. Real quick, we're just going to go over production methods, how to make buildings profitable, throughput, things like that. If you've played a game like Victoria 3, then you already know this, but it's just something good to explain to people so they actually understand what's happening here. When we look at how productive a building is, it is taking the cost of the input good, in this case wool, and it's subtracting that from how much it's selling the cloth that it's making out of wood for. Because we are making 1.16 more gold than is being used to fund the building, our productivity, our profit is 1.16. This means we can make the building more profitable by decreasing the price of wool. That's production change. So, for example, if I want to decrease the cost of my books, I could decrease the cost of dyes, paper, or lumber. Then, in addition to that, we could look into paper itself, and we could reduce the price of paper by making cheaper fiber goods and by making cheaper lumber. That will increase the production method profitability of these various goods. It seems obvious once you actually stop to think about it, and it's just something to think about as you make your nation. You want to get these base goods super cheap, so the advanced goods are also then super cheap. Now, something that you really need to pay attention to is market access. Market access is how close something is to your market. It is improved by building things like roads. Market access is something that you pretty much always want over at least 80%, although I have seen some people say that they'll build more markets if it's even under 90%. Why is that? Why is market access so outrageously important? And why do some countries make so much more money simply by improving market access? Well, you see right here is that your market access directly multiplies how many goods your buildings produce, which matters a lot. There's nothing you can do to overcome this number. Production efficiency won't overcome it. Nothing overcomes it. At 85 market access, it will just produce 85% the goods. That's it. It's a huge, huge, huge penalty. It's why roads are just so ridiculously important, even more so for proximity. Just keeping things close to your market is ridiculously important. This will mean that, for example, as Brandenburg, you will want to set up your own market, even though you might think that you're close to Lubeck and close to Prague. Having your own market and not taking a 30 to 40% penalty is enormous. This also means even if you're playing Austria, you'd want to set up your own market. If you're playing in Central Italy, you would probably also want to set up your own market. Market access is very important. And that's probably going to be the last thing I go over for this video. I think that's a good intro. I think we're at about 20 minutes, and I think that should really help you guys start playing the game and not look over some very key details that might hurt you in the long run. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a question on anything you want to know, and I'll potentially go over it in another video and help you guys out on that one. But if not, then thank you all for being here, and thank you all for watching, and as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.